Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Fast Chat on Facebook Live. My name is Ed Tephorn, and I'm the Executive Director for the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation. The foundation is the primary nonprofit organization working in partnership with Angel Island State Park to preserve the National Historic Landmarks buildings and to uplift its histories and stories. I am so excited that for our first Fast Chat on Facebook Live, we are joined today by Pornsak Pichetshote, who is the writer of an amazing new comic series called The Good Asian. He was previously at DC's Vertigo imprint, where he worked on such comic perennials as The Sandman and Swamp Thing, and he has also served as writer-director for Light as a Feather, Cloak and Dagger, and Women Who Eat Meat, among his many accomplishments. I first heard about The Good Asian because former foundation staffer Grant Din served as a historical consultant for it. And when I found out that Pornsak is of Chinese Thai heritage like myself, I knew I had to reach out to him directly. So Pornsak, welcome. Thank you for being part of our chat today. And I've picked up my copy of Good Asian #2 recently. And I just want to say that the storyline and the illustrations are absolutely wonderful and beautiful. So I'm wondering if you can start off by just telling our viewers a little bit more about the Good Asian series and a little bit about the basic storyline, the themes, the characters.
Sure. The book is called The Good Asian, and it's a genre I'm calling Chinatown noir. It's a 1936 detective story featuring the first generation of Americans to come of age under an immigration ban, the Chinese. And so it's kind of a classic noir mystery in that sort of Sam Spade, Philip Marlowe tradition, but with a Chinese American detective hailing from Hawaii. It's very much based on my love of the old Asian crime solvers in the 1930s, Charlie Chan, Mr. Moto and Mr. Wong Detective, and sort of looking at those characters that America at the time were so popular in America and sort of put them under sort of the more contemporary racial lens and actually acknowledging the Asian American history that happened at the time. And it's a 10-issue series. It's being published through Image Comics, and you can find it in comic stores now. Issues 1 and 2 should hopefully be available at your local comic store.
It is so beautifully illustrated, and just
Yeah.
to give a sense of what it looks like, the color palette again is just gorgeous, and that
Yeah.
it really evokes that, like you're saying, that noir era and that kind of detective era of
Yeah.
comics.
The art is brilliant. It's done by an artist by the name of Alexander Tefengji. He's of Vietnamese descent. He's living in France now, but of Vietnamese descent. And his art was just magnificent. He's a great storyteller, a wonderful person. And then on top of that, the colors by Lee Lowridge. I mean, Lee is sort of an industry veteran, and he's doing some of his best work on this book. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled by everyone who's like put in all their hard work into the book.
Well, thrilled for you, and kudos to you and your team about the release of Good Asian number
Thank you.
two. Now, this latest issue, Good Asian #2, includes a significant number of pages at the end of the book explaining the history of Angel Island's immigration station, which, being part of the foundation, was just thrilled to see because, unfortunately, Angel Island's dark history in Asian Pacific Islander history, in US American history, and immigration history just still is not as well known as many of us think it should be. And so I've never seen that historical component so beautifully laid out and so well laid out in a comic before. Can you tell us a bit more about why it was so important for you to make sure that people understood the context of Angel Island as part of Good Asian #2?
Yeah, the genesis of the book really came from me very late in life, learning about Angel Island, learning about the Chinese Exclusion Act, learning about the Johnson-Reed Act, and kind of being shocked and ashamed I didn't know anything about it, as an Asian American. And so that sort of led to the genesis of the book. And so it was important then to kind of open the book with Angel Island because I thought it set the tone for like this era of America or in the American history so well. But then I also kind of wanted to expand. One of the things that also was the genesis behind the book is just realizing there's so many facets of Asian American history that we don't talk about, that we don't acknowledge, that have kind of gotten swept underneath the rug. And so part of the book was to sort of tell this genre noir tale by acknowledging different sort of facets of it, almost in a way doing kind of like a Forrest Gump sort of drive-by of just like different sort of facets of Asian American history. And because of that, it was important because there's so much more that I can responsibly convey it within the narrative itself. It made sense to provide a place to say, hey, if you're interested in this, here's some more context and here's some more information. And hopefully that's what the comic will do. in the spirit of, something like David Foster Wallace, Infinite Jest, and all that kind of stuff, where the footnotes are kind of half the or half the experience. I wanted this idea of a narrative and sort of ancillary material that kind of, fed into the experience and kind of gave it a more enriching experience.
Got it. And I'm also curious, given that we're both of immigrant heritage,
Yeah.
how much did your experience as a Chinese Thai American and growing up in both Thailand and in the US, and also recent events that have happened, how much did that factor in terms of that importance of making sure that these voices, these histories, these stories are see more of the light of day?
Yeah, yeah, honestly, that history is so much a part of who I am. So it's almost hard to separate it and sort of say how much of it was just part of this book as opposed to how much of it is part of the sort of the DNA, sort of I look at the world. I think one of the things that was important to me was I wanted to show a protagonist, an experience sort of I wasn't seeing. And sort of, so much of the book for me was I start off as an editor, and way back in the day when I was an editor, I wanted to do a genre book featuring sort of Asian American themes, but I didn't really know what that meant. And I was looking sort of for a writer to tell me that. And for a lot of reasons, most of which had to sort of do with sort of the nascency and my editorial sort of skills, I couldn't quite get that book off the ground. So when it came time to write something, I wanted to do that. I wanted something that sort of explore, what are Asian American themes, and ask that question. And it started with Asian American history. Well, it's like, if I'm going to look at the themes that sort of apply to Asian Americans, well, let's start with the history that is sort of unique to us. And so that's where, and sort of my own, not discovery, but, looking into sort of my own roots, and looking into sort of my father was sort of fascinated with his Chinese roots, looking at all that kind of helped me get to, okay, well, maybe looking at this aspect of how America sort of, approached the Chinese, because it set the tone for so much immigration and America's response to immigration from that point forward. It became America's response to immigrant America, and certainly Asian American was sort of within that. So I think for me, in the book is kind of looking at things, asking questions that I had never seen before. And, I come from comic books, so I was a comic book editor and all that sort of stuff. So I know that world very well, and I was very much like, well, I haven't really seen this addressed in a comic, but as sort of a consumer of pop culture, I didn't really see that much of in the pop culture I was sort of seeing either. So a lot of
Right.
it was just, a lot of it was just trying to find a place to see all the things that I wasn't seeing, even down to having it sort of be something like noir. Like, there's a bunch of really great sort of, there's a lot of Asian American detectives out there, sort of specifically in literature, and it was sort of adding to that tradition, because I think it's so noir in the Western, it's so quintessentially American. So to add a sort of an Asian sort of American perspective, something like quintessentially American, was important to me as well.
It absolutely. This is just a wonderful addition that builds upon the previous stories and characters that have already been there, and helps to lift up and make our communities much more visible in popular culture. Pornsak, I want to thank you again for this fast chat, and I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to our longer author spotlight with
Yeah.
you later this year.
Yes,
Uh,
definitely.
so that'll probably be in September, October, once a couple more of the issues of Good Asian come out.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are following along today, this Fast Chat on Facebook Live is a new format for us. So please let us know what you think about the format. Apologies that we weren't able to show it live as we had originally planned due to some technical difficulties, but hopefully you still had a chance to catch up and hear a little bit more about Pornsak, his work, Good Asian #2, and definitely go out to your local comic book store and get your copy of Good Asian. And with that, we'll close out for today. Thank you again so much, Pornsak.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.